What's up, everyone? I'm Nick Campo. This is Donald Hampton. Big Boss Ben's out there. He'll be back with us Friday. This is the Loan Guys podcast, where we talk about building wealth through real estate. And we brought Donald on the show. He's actually, funding a loan with us. Finished up his process. Has massive amount of experience building wealth through real estate. He came into the office a few months back, maybe over the summer, and he was the guy who gave me the idea of I was like, he has some great stories about building wealth through real estate. I got to get him on, and he's our fourth guest. So Donald, welcome to the show. We appreciate you. We've been working together for a little bit, getting everything ready to go on your personal mortgage, right. And now you're here, and we're excited to have you. So Candace Stowe is our processor that gets everything through. You're her favorite client so far. She just loved you. Were so nice and having conversations and so on and so forth. So introduce yourself to the people, and let's just go. Let's tell them all the stories, all the war stories, as I like to call them.
There are many. Well, I'm glad that I'm her favorite client, but one thing that I always remember is, and I tell kids, is that manners are like a magic carpet.
Right.
They'll take you wherever you want to go.
Oh, yeah.
And so everything I do, whether I'm talking to somebody in the next room or somebody across the world on the telephone, I always try to do my best to be polite. I realize that many people on telephones, it's a very mundane job, and so if I can say something or be a little nicer than the next guy, I'll try to do that.
Well, it's even worse on the internet. When you get on the internet, the manners go out the window, and a lot of people, they'll even hide behind fake names and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
and
sure. Exactly.
So talk a little bit about what you've done. You got a GC license.
Yeah.
You've owned hundreds of properties.
Right.
You're currently doing some stuff with investment properties. Still doing the GC thing here in the Charlotte area. Talk a little bit about your journey in real estate. Go back to the beginning. How did it get started? What were you doing to that got you into real estate?
Well, I was studying music at Queen's Conservatory.
Okay.
In Charlotte, and then I went. It's just being a musician is hit or miss.
Right.
So there's no guarantees that when you turn 40, you're still not going to be waiting tables or something.
Right, right.
So I saw a teeny little ad in the newspaper about a real estate seminar at a hotel. So I went, and it was just the beginning.
Okay.
It was just opened my eyes to something that I didn't know anything about.
So what was the seminar about?
It was rental properties and investing in rental properties.
Nice.
But, it was, to the uninitiated, it sounded wonderful.
Right.
But basically, these guys were, they were doing second and third mortgages and wraps and, all that kind of stuff that, in the real world is just
not good.
Doesn't work very long. All it takes is, somebody to get sick or divorced or bankrupt, and the whole thing falls apart.
Right. I don't even know if they don't do wraps anymore in mortgages, and you would be lucky to see a third lien. I don't think I've seen a third lien in hundreds of transactions I've done here.
Right. Well, they exist.
They do. It's just not as common.
And sometimes, it's not on the up and up because people will get two loans on the same day.
Yeah.
That happens too.
Less regulated.
Yeah. And, but I got interested in it, and then just put one foot in front of the other. And one of my best friends from high school, we got into the business slowly, as much as we could afford to do. And 2 years, I had my contractor's license, residential, and the next year I got my commercial, and then the next year I got my broker's license.
Oh, wow.
So by the time I was 24, I had all those things in the bag,
Okay.
And not that I enjoyed being a broker, because back then it was before dual agency. So, the broker had to represent the seller.
Right.
And it took all the fun out of it because you couldn't be a speculator.
Right.
Which is what I am at heart. Buy low, sell high,
Right.
And so you can't very well be competing with who would be your clients.
Mhm.
So I didn't do much of that, and ultimately just let it go because I just didn't like it. Didn't
Gotcha.
see any point in it.
Right.
It was against what I really like to do. But the main thing is what I learned going through the course. I had an excellent teacher, and he was just like fantastic.
Good mentor.
Oh yeah, just the way he taught the class was
Mhm.
just things I still hear him in my head when I say certain things. You know.
So did you have initial success? You're 24 years old, general contracting license guy. You had initial success. What was your first property?
My first property, my partner and I, we bought a little house and moved it.
Okay.
And of course, when you buy, it was sitting on the mover's lot. You know, it was
Right.
cheap, $2,500, and but then you got to have a place to put it.
Okay. Yeah.
So we found a little parcel of property, and it was 1 acre, and we were able to subdivide it
Okay.
and into 3 lots, and we moved this little house onto one of them. Things were a lot simpler then. You know?
Yeah. Well, did you have to rezone and do all that?
No.
So talk a little bit about what the environment was like for that, because now you would have to do rezoning and you're having to go to the city and
Well,
X, Y, and Z.
It's a lot more complicated now.
Right.
Then it was, zoning was, I think, R15 or something. So
Mhm.
it's 15,000 square feet per lot, which is a third of an acre roughly.
Right.
And so it was easy. It was easy math, you know. And,
Mhm.
and the best part is that we got a guy to finance the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, the seller financed it because remember, this is 1980,
Okay.
and mortgage rates were
17%.
Well, that was just before, but the next year, you know, Reagan was in, and then Paul Volcker was the Fed chairman, and that's when the rates went to, you know, I paid prime plus 1, I think, in 1981 September, and it was 23.75.
And
then they
nobody complains this day and age.
Right. Well, we're still below the 30-year moving average, like
Sure.
for rates, and you know,
Yeah.
you have to remind people of that.
Hey, Donald, will you do me? Can you move that just a little bit closer to you?
Sure.
Because they're having a hard time hearing you out there.
Better? Okay.
Also, Mike, you can turn up the volume.
I'm at the peak.
Gotcha.
Is that okay? I mean, is that okay? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're good now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 23%. They fell pretty quickly after that? Because didn't they fall while Reagan was in office as well?
Oh, yeah, it did. It took about 2 years, though.
2 years.
I mean, it didn't stay at 23. Mortgage rates were 18.
Right.
But, you know, it started creeping down. But I remember thinking, my God, if we could just get back to 12%, I'd be in heaven.
Yeah. and then they did come down. So you bought the first home you bought, you moved.
Mhm.
Subdivided the lot. Did you build on the other lot, or what did you do on the other lot?
I didn't have a license yet, you know,
Gotcha.
to build, and certainly didn't know enough.
Right.
But finished the one project, and I had a friend that had some money, and he loaned us money on that finished property.
Right.
I had to rent it because there's no way to sell anything then.
Mm.
So then took that money, cashed out, and bought another one, and did another one.
Nice.
Yeah.
So,
So
how old were you? 22 at this time?
21.
21. So at 21 years old, you've already done 3 properties.
Mhm.
Wow. Do you think it was harder to buy back then than it is now?
No.
You think it's harder now?
It's different.
It's different. There's more information available,
Mm-hmm.
more competition in some ways, just because everything's at your fingertips. You know, back in the old days, you had to go to the courthouse to research anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was not even microfiche, you know, when I started.
Right.
It was bad.
That's so funny.
But yes, that made it hard, and that,
Mhm.
that you know, you have to have the time
Mm-hmm.
to do that. And today, it's all at your fingertips. You know, if
Right.
you know how to use it and apply yourself, you can learn what you want to learn.
I argue that it's easier now, especially so one of the things I always give an example of to first-time home buyers, if they're like, hey, I want to invest in real estate eventually, this is what I say to them. I was like, well, if you want to invest in real estate and you're looking to buy your primary residence right now, why not buy a 2-unit?
Mhm.
FHA 3.5% down. You can even do a down payment assistance program with it and do 0% down, and then rent the other side out,
Right.
and then do the same thing in a year, and now you have 4 doors.
That's it.
You don't have to have and educate me a little bit about the 80s when you were getting started. Wasn't it 20% down on everything,
Pretty much.
unless you got a second or third lien?
Hmm.
And those would probably beat you over the head interest rate wise.
Oh yeah.
So did it make sense to do that? Or like if you're renting the property out or selling the property, are you going to be able to make a profit if you have 3 liens with interest rates through the roof?
Not really.
No.
I mean, it's going to be tough in that environment. But you know, the thing that we did was just put one foot in front of the other and just wait it out. You know,
Right.
kept doing something. We never put any money in our pocket
Right.
for the first 3 or 4 years. You know, it's just
Smart. That's smart business, right?
well, it's survival. Really. But you know, you get going along a little better. And of course, the environment got better after 1982. Things improved, and so then it became easier. I think in 1983, I built my first house,
Okay.
you know, brand new house, and sold it.
Okay.
And so that was good. Learned a lot.
How old were you then? 25?
23.
23?
Yeah.
Wow. So you built your first house at 23. It's just so funny to me now the mindset difference with people who are not everyone. There's some pretty successful people in their 20s still, but you know, you're looking at a day and age at 21 years old where a lot of people are still living with their parents, and there's an excuse to not do stuff, and there isn't it seems like you had the will to find a way, and
Yes.
I think we need to get some of that back in the country just a little bit. But
I think you need, that's absolutely the truth. But you know, the thing is that I had an offer. I thought I wanted to be an auto mechanic when I was in high school. Right?
okay.
I loved it. You know,
Yeah.
I was good at it. But my auto mechanics teacher, about a month before graduation, he told me, he said, "Boy," he said, "you'll never make your living with a box of wrenches." I was like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" You know, and so I didn't do a whole lot of college prep
Right.
courses and stuff, and I was just like, "What the hell am I going to do?"
Okay.
If he's telling me this, you know, I need to listen to it,
Right.
because he was really, really a mentor to me. Had pretty good job offers out there, you know, for somebody with my skill level, and the computers were just coming into the cars, and so it was a lot of people just fought it, you know, didn't want to get involved in it. But anyway, so I was afraid to take those jobs that were offered to me because I was afraid I would get trapped.
Right.
So you get into a job and you're making pretty good money for the day, and you know, all the trappings of life start showing up, you know, car payments and houses and furniture and all this stuff, and then you can't get out.
Right. Golden
There's
handcuffs.
nothing else. Yeah, you can't go and do anything else and pay your bills. So I didn't do it.
Right.
And I took a job working in a warehouse for $3.25 an hour.
Rich.
Yeah. But I go down, you know, and you know, my first day on that job, and I sat down on a box in the back of the warehouse. I said, "What the hell have I done?" You know, and I mean, I really started thinking about this, and so I even went back to my guidance counselor from the high school, and I said, "You know, what do I got to do to get into college? You know, what do I have to do? Tell me." And so, you know, we were going through all of that, but over the next couple of years, you know, life happens, and I kept looking.
Mm-hmm.
Just, there's got to be something.
Right.
And I remember my business partner. He worked at a place where he would see fairly well-to-do people, you know, that would, you know, go out on their boats in the middle of the day. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, what's that guy do? I want to be him. You know.
Exactly. I'm still saying that.
Yeah. So that's really was our mindset. You know, it's like, what does he do? You know, I want to do what he does.
Right.
And so that's sort of how we did it. That was our approach. Now, we didn't have any magic or
Right.
any insight, no
Right.
crystal ball, but that was just sort of, okay, well, he can do it, I can do it.
Right. 100%.
Well, the question I have now though is, you're here
Uh-huh.
and you have all the mechanic experience. So how many cars do you have now?
Right now I just have one car, but it's a classic Mercedes. It's a 1993 CE convertible cabriolet,
Of course you do.
and it's
Love it.
It's a rare car.
Yeah, it's awesome.
and love it.
Mike's a big car guy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He put a car program in for our top producers. So if they hit a certain amount of volume over a 3-month period, we get them a Beamer.
really?
Yeah. A Beamer, they get a suit. And then we have the a Rolex. So for top producers. So people who come here, they are top producers. They're going to get some nice stuff.
Fantastic.
We just, what was that saying we heard yesterday? Instead of being a pyramid scheme for the executives, we like to spread it out a little bit amongst our people and say, hey, thank you for everything you're doing to help us build MBI Financial Group, because, you know, you've built a business. It seems like you're an entrepreneur, to be completely honest with you. And the number one sign of that is, with my skill set in mechanics, computers are just coming into cars. You mentioned you weren't really fighting it. Other people were, and you had all kinds of, offers. You turned down offers that 99% of America would take, be happy with, and stay in, because you were more afraid of getting stuck in that and not being able to hit your true potential.
Correct.
That's the definition of an entrepreneur, in my opinion.
Well, my job offers were in the $12 range,
Right.
and that was a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
Out of high school for a kid in 1977,
Yep.
and to take almost a fourth of that to avoid the trap. I mean, you second guess yourself, when you're going through that, but it's not necessarily. You have to believe that there's something better for you. Now, I could have gone into auto mechanics and made a fortune, reinvesting the money from that.
Right.
You could do it all kinds of ways, but something told me that
Not to do it.
my teacher told me.
Right.
He said, "You're never going to do that."
Right.
And I mean, I wish he'd have told me that a year earlier.
Where were you on that one, right?
So, looking back on it, good decision or bad decision?
Excellent decision.
Excellent decision. No regrets there.
No.
Because then it led you to college, and you were going for music.
Mhm.
And then you get this real estate seminar. What is it, 3 years later, you've multiple properties and built a house?
Mhm.
That's a quick timeline.
Pretty quick if you think about it. It didn't seem that fast at the time, but yeah, you wake up one day and it's like, good Lord.
Right. Did it take off after that?
Oh, yeah.
So what happened next?
I did my first small subdivision when I was 25.
Wow. How many houses?
It was a multifamily thing. It was, 15 units.
How'd that opportunity come to you?
Just trying to remember. The land was available, and we just decided to do it.
Awesome.
And it had water. It had water and sewer to the edge of the property, and we had to engineer the line extensions and laterals and all that.
That makes things a bit easier.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you do a subdivision. When did you really start getting into, rental properties and things of that nature? And have you done this in the Charlotte area the whole time?
Mostly, yes.
Mostly Charlotte?
Yeah. Got in it. Didn't really like it.
Mm-hmm.
And was out of it from, I don't know, late 80s until about 94.
Okay.
And then another opportunity fell in my lap, and it was just too good to pass up.
Right.
I couldn't not do it.
What was that?
It was just myself and a couple of partners bought almost 200 houses.
I think this is the story. I was like, okay, we got to get you on to tell this story. 200 units in Charlotte.
Mhm.
How did this happen? How did they fall into your lap?
Well, a couple of guys that I was doing contracting work for owned a realty company, and then the city of Charlotte was starting cracking down on dilapidated property, rental property especially.
Right.
And so they had all these new inspectors going around inspecting all these properties, and and one of the owners did an interview with the TV station, and the guy did a 60 Minutes hit piece on it,
Oh no.
and it embarrassed him.
Oh God.
I told him all about all these properties that he owned, and of course he was hands-off guy. He didn't know,
Right.
but
Pretty big name in the area at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Like
But,
so people knew him.
yes, and so it was bad,
Right.
for him. And I mean, he called one of the guys that I was working for and said, "Get me out."
Mm.
And so then you have to figure out how you're going to do it.
Right.
And but he wanted out so bad. I mean, basically, it was no money down, just take it,
Right.
and 7%. And but then I'm the only technical guy over 200 properties
Jeez.
with code violations on every one of them.
Wow.
And you got to do. I say everyone. That's an exaggeration. It was a lot though.
Right.
So, and at that time you had to make 10% repairs every 30 days.
Oh wow.
On every property
Mm.
to keep them from putting you on the demo list.
Oh jeez.
So you and code enforcement were best friends.
I mean, you talk about harebrained, going crazy. Yeah, that was it. I mean, 16-hour days for 4 years, 7 days a week.
So you got these 200 property. What year was it?
94.
So in 1994, Charlotte starts cracking down, especially on rentals, and code enforcement comes in. You get 200 properties, pretty much say 90% of them, 80% of them have code violations. You have to do 10% of the repairs every 30 days on 200 properties. You're the only one who's in the construction realm, the technical guy.
That's right.
How did you decide? Were you able to keep every single property, or how did you decide, hey, here's what I'm going to work on. We need to offload these ones. Did you do any of that?
Yes. Fortunately, one of the partners had a finance degree.
Okay.
And so he understood assigned values and rates of return and all that kind of stuff, right? And so we were able to, when you buy a big chunk of properties, you have to assign values to them so that you know what your basis is going forward. And, all the numbers have to add up. But basically, the ones we thought that were good enough that we could flip and, suck a little cash out to keep funding all this other stuff, those were the ones we put with the highest assigned values.
Gotcha.
So when you unload them, there's really no gain, I mean, it's just really little.
Right.
But it was all, relative. I mean, it was anybody's guess what it was worth.
Did they do an appraisal on that?
No.
Now if you did that in the state of New York, they would give you a $454 million fine.
Oh yeah, probably.
I mean,
It's
seriously.
175 now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not keeping up, but I laugh because we're talking about
No, that's just the bond.
that's just a yeah.
It's still $454 million.
Yeah. So it's
Try
just
to check.
it's just so funny to me that because this happens in real estate when you go to get a mortgage. You came to me we were doing a mortgage and there was some stuff we had to do the prep for it. I said to you, what do you think the property is worth? And you told me.
Mhm.
And then we had a third party appraiser go out. They told us, and boom, there we go. Right. This is something that we've done in real estate forever. Like going back to the beginning of time. It's the same thing like you like cars, right? So Mike, if Donald has a car and say it's the Mercedes and you look at Mike and you're like, I want 60,000. This is a classic car. And you say yes and you buy that car, nobody gets hurt.
Right.
What's the problem?
Right. Where's the harm?
Where's the harm?
Right.
There is no harm. It goes back to ownership. But so the city allowed you and your group to assign the value.
No, it wasn't the city. It's just It's when you record the deeds.
Right.
You know, you have to assign values, whether it's tax value or some other value to each property.
Okay.
And so that's what your tax basis is going forward.
Right.
So if you got a high value on one and you sell that one, then obviously you make less money.
Right.
The spread is
Right.
less. But that also allows you to keep your other properties that are of lesser value, and there's more upside on those,
Correct.
you know, until you sell it. I mean, but it's on paper, it looks good, you know?
Right. Right. So how many did you sell off with a high value?
Not many. But I don't even really remember. But it was enough to generate enough cash to keep us going.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how long were you in this deal for with the
I was in that deal for about 5 years.
and so
4 years, yeah.
so the ones that you got them off the list, you stopped them from being dilapidated, you're renting them out, you guys were cash flowing. What do you think you were cash flowing on those properties per month? And how
You know, there was so much rehab that had to be done. I don't even know. I didn't handle the numbers part of that.
Right.
You know, I was so busy trying to put fires out.
Yeah.
I will tell you a funny story, and this is something that your listeners ought to take heed of.
Right.
During all this chaos, I got a phone call. There was another group of properties that we were going to take down, and it was, you know, about 20 units or something like that. I get a phone call, and one of these things is on fire.
Oh,
It's a duplex.
Seems like the going story.
It's on fire. And so I was like, great, that's all I need, another project.
Right.
And so as it turns out, sure enough, it was pretty severe damage. And the deal was I was buying this duplex for $36 grand. And partly because of the way the deal was structured and it was owner financing, that kind of stuff, my lawyer drafted the contract.
okay.
Okay. So this is a lesson to everybody listening: is
I
that
remember this story.
always
This is
get
great.
your lawyer to draft your contract, and always make sure that you decide where the insurance money goes. Okay. So I bought this property for $36 grand, and the insurance proceeds were $76.
Mm-hmm.
The owner sold me that property, and owner financed it, had to pay off whatever mortgage he had, and I got a check for $70 grand. That's pretty sweet.
That's a sweet deal. Talk about an ROI.
Yeah.
Quick one.
Well, you know, of course, you got the rehab.
Right.
But still, it's a windfall. And,
Right.
You know, and if we had used a standard real estate contract, the seller could have said, "No thanks, I'll take the insurance money and I'm canceling the deal." You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's standard language.
Right.
So you know, get yourself a contract that's in your favor, whether you're buyer or seller.
Absolutely.
And don't use the boilerplate stuff.
Right.
Never.
No, because it's not written for you.
No, it isn't.
And people don't realize that. It's also why I say, you know, even nowadays, realtors are a good value to have, because if I'm just an everyday homeowner looking to buy a property, I don't understand the language of the contract the way somebody who's working on it day to day is. So, you know, and the same thing with having the attorney read over the contract as well. That's on your side. It's also why I advise every single person I work with, choose your closing attorney, or at least shop for them, so that you have a relationship with them. Because at the end of the day, what is it? A good attorney and a good CPA, they might cost you thousands, but they're going to save you millions.
Right. It's very true. You know, my lawyer kept me out of so much trouble.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just protecting me from what I didn't know.
Right.
And he really had my interest at heart, and he never tried to churn me and charge me a whole bunch of money just for the sake of doing it when he could have.
Right.
You know, and so that was really good. He served me well for more than 30 years.
That's awesome. Good. It's hard to find a good attorney, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. They're out there though if you look.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the things I liked about you is when you were looking for a mortgage person now, you found our website, which I don't know how, because I keep getting these emails from search engine optimization companies saying that we aren't showing up high enough. So you must have dug a little bit for us.
I searched for mortgage broker,
Right.
not mortgage lender.
Why'd you go for broker?
Well, I wanted somebody that had access to a lot of markets.
Right.
You know, typically these typical lenders, they're stuck with one
Agreed.
avenue. I knew that, so I wanted to get somebody that it's like an independent insurance agent. You know,
Right.
they can shop you 10 different places.
Right. And they have your best interest in mind as well.
Yes. Right.
It's why I don't know if you know this, but mortgage brokers went from 8% of the market share when I got into the industry in 2011ish, 2012.
Uh-huh.
We're at 43% now.
Really? Wow.
Oh yeah, it's going over 50% too. Well, and the government just came out. We save the client on average $9,400 per transaction because we're driving the rates down, right?
see.
Because they, you can't. When you walk into a bank, they're going to just give you the rate, and a lot of times the person walking in isn't shopping that. We're shopping on behalf of the client, so we're pushing it to multiple different avenues, and we do enough business to where they want us to continue to send them business, so it naturally drops the rate. And on top of it, closing costs are typically about $3,000, maybe sometimes $5,000, that somewhere in that average, because they're not charging you with the. If you go into a bank and you look at a closing disclosure now versus our closing disclosure, the amount of fees, like say a big bank closing disclosure has on it, that are just, what are they? Right. So we get rid of those. But let's get back to, so you had those 200 properties, you got that additional 20, you got the big windfall from the insurance. You mentioned being in the 200 properties for 4 to 5 years. What was the exit strategy there?
Basically, partner burnout.
Right.
You just, at some point, it just gets to where it's just not fun anymore.
Right.
And I really wanted to scale it back.
Right.
And so I did. I sold out of that one partnership and took a chunk of properties that were all paid for. And of course, that was a taxable event. So, I had to figure out in a year how I was going to pay the taxes on that.
Right.
So I did a little refi and took care of that. But I scaled it back to about 40.
Okay.
And basically went to the mailbox for my living for 20 years. Had a good time in my, from 40 to 60, and,
Right.
And,
were you on the boat in the middle of the day like the people you and your buddy?
I'm not really a boater, but
Life goals.
I'm a gardener, and
Right.
I did everything that I wanted to do.
That's awesome.
When I was young, and I didn't have any children, so my ex-wife was, she was a nurse and made a lot of money, and we come and go as we please.
That's awesome.
We have 10 days at a time. We could just take off and go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
40 properties. So 240. They bought you out by giving you the properties?
Well, what we did was, of course, there's debt
Right.
and equity, and so you split equity, and so I took a certain chunk of properties in exchange for my equity.
Okay.
It wasn't really a true valuation of my equity, but it got me out.
Right.
At that point,
And that's
I
what you
was
wanted.
ready to get out.
Right. That's pretty cool.
I mean, it was just my comfort level. I just was tired of having so much to do.
Right.
And it was really good to me. I've made a couple of $1 million in 4 years. And
Yeah.
that ain't bad.
Right. And what year was this?
94 to 98.
So by 98, you have a couple $1 million, and the dollar was worth a little bit more back then. So you were living good, and you had cash flow coming in.
Oh yeah.
Can't beat that.
No. At one point, I for 20 years, I mean, I made somewhere around $100,000 a year and paid no taxes because I had so much depreciation. I mean, it was sweet.
This is why people get into real estate.
Exactly.
Rental properties, real estate. You mentioned having a general contracting license. Were you doing projects and stuff at that point?
I did not do any during that time. I could have done a lot more, but I'm telling you, man, I was just in vacation mode.
Awesome. That's the life to live, right?
Especially at that age.
Right.
Too many people wait until they're in their 60s, mid-60s, and think, okay, well, I'm going to live now.
Right.
Well, but you never know what your health is going to be.
Correct.
And then, when you're 40 and you go on a vacation, some safari or something, you don't think about where the hospital is or where the doctor is.
Right.
But when you get up in your 60s, you know, you better be thinking about that.
Right. How old are you now?
I'm 64. I'll be 65 in 3 months.
I would have never guessed you look young. Would you, Mike?
No, but that's that stress-free living he had. You know what I mean? God.
But it was good. I probably could have been a little more aggressive, and especially when money was easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I remember people buying $1 million homes with no income, no asset. Just
That was wild.
Well, you
That
could have,
was
but you could have been the
insanity.
mechanic too, and
That's right.
really been still working on cars.
Yeah,
You know what I
right,
mean?
exactly.
So
But you know, it was just a comfort level. Yeah, maybe I got a little lazy, but that's okay. You know,
I don't think that's lazy though. You worked 16 hours days for 5 straight years,
That's
made a
right.
couple $1 million. Then you have
7, 8.
40 properties. You have 40 properties left over. You're cash flowing on those properties, making $100,000 a year, not having to pay taxes because of depreciation and all the other benefits of real estate. When I talk to my clients about building wealth through real estate, this is what I'm talking about.
Right.
Nobody goes and works hard so that they can keep working. You work hard so you have more time available, right? So I have a 10-year time period here to build this and to build investment properties. We get, dilapidated properties. Mike is part of this up in Kannapolis and Bend, and we're going to redo that. We're going to have them as rentals, and we're going to actually do room rentals. So traveling nurses, and they'll rent per room $800 per room.
Sure, yeah.
And you can get with the hospitals and so on and so forth. The rooms that have a master bedroom with their, say their own bathroom, they'll pay $1,200 a room. 4 rooms, so 3 of them at $800 each. That's $3,200. Master at $1,200. That's what $4,400 a month. Our mortgage payment on the property is going to be about $1,200. So we're
you go.
cash flowing $3,000 a month off one
Slam
property.
dunk. What's not to like?
What's not to like? I mean,
And that first real estate seminar I went to, this is the thing that I remember the most, is they said, if you do something and it works, what do? You do it again,
mm-hmm.
and you do it again, and you keep doing it. And that's the thing that drew me to real estate, is that if you follow the basic rules of the road,
Mm-hmm.
you will be successful.
Oh yeah.
There's no question about it.
Well, even now, and you probably see this, there's an inventory shortage. So if you own properties and you're renting, what's happening? Your rent prices, you're getting more for rent, but you're also gaining equity through appreciation in the property.
Correct.
Because there's such a demand on the property compared to the supply that it's going up. So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, I tell this to people that are getting in the business sometimes. I say, look, just break it down really simple, and these are not real numbers, but if you got $100,000 and you want to buy real estate,
Mm-hmm.
then don't put all that money in one place.
No,
Chop it up in 10 pieces and buy 10 properties.
that's what I tell people all the time.
all the time. Yeah, you got a little bit of risk. You got your neck stuck out a little bit, but if you buy right, if you put your $100,000 in one property, if it goes up 10% in a year, you made $10,000
Correct.
on paper.
Correct.
If you buy 10 properties and they all go up $10,000, now you made 100.
Right.
And you just multiply that,
Correct.
and it's very simple math.
Right.
And the downside to what I was telling you about depreciation and offsetting your taxes is that when you sell, there's depreciation recapture.
Right. Yes.
And that's the evil
Right.
that you don't want to meet. But I mean, it's just reality, and you have to pay it.
Uncle Sam needs that cash.
Well, it's part of their incentive, I guess, to get
Right.
people to leverage and
Correct.
take the risk.
Correct.
But you pay the piper at some point. But if you keep the properties for long enough, then when you die, your heirs get them at the then value.
Correct.
All that goes away.
Right. And then if you have a good attorney, a state attorney, they can plan it out to where your heirs aren't getting crushed in taxes
That's right.
either.
Right.
So you have to look into like living trust and so on and so forth. And again, get with an attorney on that, because that stuff makes my head hurt. I can do mortgage. I can negotiate deals. I can negotiate interest rates. I can go and find like the dilapidated property I was telling you about. We got it for $40,000 cash purchase.
Wow, nice.
It's going to be worth $300,000 when the after repair value. Like I can do that stuff. But when you start talking to me, the CPA talked to me. We got our taxes done for the business and for personal, and same thing with attorneys.
I'm better at that side than I am the CPA side.
Right.
Okay. My CPA will start talking about, And by the way, I've had the same guy for 42 years.
Oh, wow. So he's good at what he does.
Well, he's very near retirement.
Right.
So
You can't worry that you're going to have to find someone else or.
well, yeah, I will. I mean,
Right.
I'll probably stay with the same firm, but
Right.
we'll see. But anyway, it's just he starts talking about all this, schedule this and schedule that, and my eyes glaze over. You know,
All right.
it's just not my gig. You
Me
know,
Mine's named Ray, and I was talking to him, and I said, Ray, I believe you. My head's hurting. We've been talking for 30 minutes. If you want me to get you approved for a mortgage, if you want me to find creative financing, if you want me to walk you through what the process is, I can do that. If you want me to advise you, on not putting $150,000 down on a townhome as a rental property and spreading that out, like you said, I can do that. I can make you a comprehensive real estate plan, but I just 10 minutes at most. Just tell me they're done. I'll take a look and make sure that the revenues match up correctly, and I trust that you got everything else.
you know, there have been times when I didn't think my CPA was aggressive enough,
Mm-hmm.
but on the other hand, he always kept me grounded.
Right.
You know, I know a lot of people that have some very creative accounting, and you know, it's too dangerous for me. You know, I'm not willing to take those risks. I work too hard to get what I have,
Right.
and I'm not going to lose it by being stupid. You know,
Right.
you know, cheating on taxes or
Yeah, I
whatever.
don't
You
do
know,
that.
I'm not going to do it. It's just not going to happen.
My question is, am I going to get audited? Am I going to go to jail? Am I going to have a big tax bill to pay because of
Right.
this? And
Oh,
the
yeah.
answer better be no to all three.
That's right. And another thing, I'll tell you, you know, I'm really cautious, but I never allowed my wife and I to file joint tax returns. No, never.
How come?
It's a safety factor.
Right.
You know, the tax authorities, they come take your bank account and then they ask questions, right?
Right. Oh, that's true. 100%.
And so, you know, you got expenses, you got to live, you know, what do you do? You know, and I had them hit me one time 40 years ago for, it wasn't even my fault. It was just stupid.
Right.
Made a tax payment and that didn't get credited. So they yanked the money out of my account again. So, you know, that hurts when you don't have a lot.
Right.
And so I just always thought that it was better to keep my wife's income over here and mine over here.
Right.
And yeah, it costs us a little bit, but I can sleep at night.
Right. Right. 100%. My mom, I remember when I was a kid, I don't remember the exact story, but they made a mistake, the IRS did, and they actually froze all her assets.
Oh, yeah.
And it took weeks or months.
That's right.
And we didn't have a lot at that time. And I mean, my parents did well, you know, providing the stuff for us, but you know, I don't remember the exact story. I would have to ask her, but I remember that there was something going on with the taxes where they froze it, and it was a mistake on their part, and it took weeks for them to reverse that.
That's right.
And they
Got
don't.
bills. The bills don't stop.
No, the bills don't stop, and they don't care. Like
No, they don't care.
They don't care. They're like, oh well, sorry.
Mhm.
There was no like, hey, here's some extra money because you went
Right.
out, you know, late fees or whatever. They don't do
Right.
that. So,
So I would advise anybody, you know, if you're, no matter what business you're in, I would do it that way.
Right.
For sure. If
absolutely.
it costs you a little more in taxes, screw it. Do it.
Right. And well, and then there's, you know, you mentioned there's a lot of people call them tax loopholes. I call them tax incentives, right? So there's incentives to owning properties.
Yeah.
And if you have a good CPA, they're going to do that. And I always preach this well through real estate. Like, you get a good CPA because they're going to advise you through that. Now, you went from 40 to 60 where you were, you know, vacation mode, collecting, I like to call it mailbox money.
That's it.
And you did a good job on that. You gave some good advice, right? So far, as far as dividing up the 100,000 into 10 properties instead of
Oh, yes.
one properity, right?
It's leverage. That's what it is.
It is. And I talked to a guy, and some people are just so conservative they can't do that.
Right.
And it almost, you know, because at the end of the day, it's everybody's. They have their risk tolerance. So we give options, but they have to decide. I had somebody who just recently put $150,000 down on a property, so 50% loan to value, and it's a townhome. And because of the condo association dues or the townhome dues, the association dues, they're not even cash flowing but $100 a month. I'm just like, oh my God. I said, I don't think I would do that.
I wouldn't have done that deal at all.
Well, you advise people, but at the end of the day, it's their choice, right? So I'm like, I wouldn't do that. I would do this. Well, it was either keep the money cash in the bank or put a bunch down on a property that's going to gain appreciation. So it's the better of the two evils, in my opinion.
Yeah, but money's not free.
Correct.
There's a cost of money no matter what it is.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that money's off the table now, except that it's in real estate. He's not leveraged enough, in my opinion. But I guess that's what it took to make the numbers work as far as the cash flow.
Well, it was more personal
service.
comfort.
I see. Okay.
Personal comfort. I advised against it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't think you should do this.
Right.
I think you should do this. But this person has multiple investment properties. They've made a bunch of money. This is what they were comfortable doing.
Well, can't argue with that.
Can't argue with it. Now, I did show the numbers of, well, you could take this, just put it into 4 properties. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at what your monthly cash flow is.
All right.
And stay away from townhomes or condos for an investment property. I think they're the worst because of the HOA dues are so high and they keep going up that you don't realize some of the, like, that's a couple $100 a month in some cases.
And all it takes is 4 or 5 nutcases to get on the board, and then
It's
sunk.
over. It's game over. Yeah.
Exactly. And that happens because nobody wants to serve on those things.
No.
And then you get somebody that's got some power trip, and then you're really in trouble.
It makes me laugh because when you talk about association dues, and I was just thinking about this because they had an election in our neighborhood, and if you're on the board in our neighborhood, don't take this personal, but I look at association boards like townhomes, condos, homeowner associations, and politics very similar.
Oh,
Sane people don't want to go into it. The people with like a sanity, they typically don't want to do that, right? What they want to do is they want to run their businesses and they want to do that. So the people who go into it are the people who have that power trip, who want the control typically. Not all the time. Not everybody.
Or they're retired and bored.
Right.
Well, that's even more dangerous.
Well, that really is because that's all they got to do.
Right. That's all they have. That's all they have to do. That's all they focus on. They'll come by with a ruler. They'll measure the length of your grass. They'll tell you, like, yeah. So that to me is even more dangerous. Like if you're retired and bored, learn how to play golf.
Fish.
Do something. But then on the other hand, it's everybody that I have admired for most of my life, the people that live to be old
Right.
and healthy,
Mm-hmm.
stay engaged, they stay working,
Correct.
doing something.
Something.
This thing of sitting down and going and doing nothing,
That's how you die.
people don't live long.
Right. I'm worried
So-
about Nick Saban after he retired from Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not kidding. You look at all these older coaches that retire.
Mhm.
Once they stop working, like
Right.
you said, it's typically that's it for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting theory. So you said 64,
Mhm.
64,
Almost 65.
and oh geez.
The only good part is Medicare.
So almost 65, and you still have your GC license. You mentioned that you're doing a couple properties in the Fort Mill area right now.
Mhm.
You have your own personal properties, and I don't know if you want to get into what you're doing now in real estate, but yeah, talk a little bit about that because you mentioned not retiring technically, always having something to do. So are you going to do this forever?
I enjoy it.
Right.
I think it's the most fun thing ever to be able to see something that other people don't see.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been able to do that a few times in my life, and it's just exhilarating.
Right.
People drive by something every day, never give it a second thought. And I look at it and it's like, why is that still sitting there?
Right.
Why is that? And so you start thinking and you start doing your homework, and you put something together that is an epiphany, And so it's really fun.
Right.
And the construction business sort of fills in the blanks between the real estate deals. That's the way I do it. And, some of my buddies that are also into property investments and this and that, they don't have that luxury, so they have to make deals all the time. And it's hard. It's not always a buyer's market.
Right.
And when it's a real seller's market, it's the opposite for buyers, And so it makes it harder and harder to find deals. So I have the luxury to kind of be more patient and wait
Right.
and wait for the deals to come to me. I'm always looking, and I'm probably the most laid back looker you've ever seen. But when I see it, buddy, I'm on it. I mean, a bulldog, 100%. Do it right now.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Don't play around.
That's how you got your most recent property that we just did.
That's right.
You just drove by it a bunch of times.
That one was referred to me by somebody, and I did my homework on it for a couple hours on the computer, and then I knew. I said, if this is anywhere close to what it looks like it is, it's going to be mine.
Right.
And got an appointment with the seller later that day, about 3:30, and I took the contract with everything filled in except the price. And so I was ready.
Right.
And so he starts hemming and hawing about, maybe I need to talk to my neighbor. Maybe I need to do this, try to, see if I can get a little more money out of it. I said, look, buddy, I said, I didn't come down here to bid on a property. I came to buy one.
Right.
And I said, if you want to do the deal, what's your number? Right now, what's your number?
Right.
And he stumbled around for 30 seconds, and he gave me a number. Done. Just like that.
I always say, if I give my number and they're like, okay, my number was too low.
Yeah.
I've had that happen, and I've gone back and I've kind of kicked myself. I said
Yeah.
I should have gone a little bit higher, because I like if I give a number, they, if I'm selling it and I give a number, I would like them to come back a little bit lower and not just say done, because that means I went a little bit above, but here's where they're comfortable. Let's meet in the middle. When they give a number, I give a number and you're like, got it. I'm like, oh man, I could have gone higher.
Exactly. But I put it in his lap.
Correct.
I wasn't gonna sit there
Always.
and bid against myself.
Right.
And that's what you do. If you start escalating and try to figure out where his hot button is.
Right.
So I sort of put it on him, and I said, look, we're either going to do this right now or I'm going home.
That's how you always want to do it too in the negotiation.
I mean, it was just like that.
Let them speak first.
Right. And the only thing I didn't do is I didn't take my checkbook with me to write him the earnest money check.
Right. Oops.
Yeah. So I ran around to the ATM, got cash, made him sign a receipt for the cash and for what it was for. So, yeah, we're technically under contract at that moment. It wasn't an hour till the next guy showed up.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I left at 4:30. He got there at 5:30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Smart man.
He was late.
Well, it's just you got to be on it. I mean, you can't. When I buy stuff through realtors,
Mm-hmm.
they have to understand, and I explain it. That when I see something and I want it right now. I want you to move right now. Stop what you're doing. I would need to do it right now.
And that's
Not 5 minutes from now, right now.
that's the partnership.
You got to get it. And if you're not willing to do that, I'll go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And because these things don't come along every day. If you get a good deal, you got to get it, because there's a dozen people right behind you.
Oh yeah. Well, that's great advice too, especially in this market.
Sir.
That's this market, and it's why I get called impatient a lot, especially on the real estate side of things. I'm impatient in this as well.
He's just impatient in general.
I think you have to be.
Well, it's part of the drive.
Right.
I understand that. But in the investing world and trying to buy deals, the fact of the matter is that they're hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't come along every day. And my advice would be, don't beat yourself up if you can't find it.
Correct.
I've had partners that were just, it's out there. We got to find it. We got to find it. We got to find it. No, you don't. Just be patient. You'll see it. It'll come along.
Yeah. Be impatient though once you want the deal.
Oh, when you want the deal, you
Right.
got to be on it. Right now.
Because if you're in, my whole thing is when you, and especially when, like for me, it's like the deal comes along, and I'm going to use the Kannapolis property as something for. So this deal came along. I was there the next day. I wasn't out looking The deal fell into my lap partly
There you
because
go.
of this podcast, partly because of the business, partly because I knew this person who knew this person and this person. And
Right.
the person who owned the property passed away. The son inherited the property. I knew him from another industry. He called me and said, "You're in mortgage. Do you want to buy some real estate?" I said, "I always want to buy real estate." And he said, "Okay, come look at this property." So I drove up there, and as I'm driving into downtown Kannapolis, they just put a single-A baseball team. They're redeveloping the downtown.
Huh.
And I get to this property, and if you get to the property, you don't know what's on the other side of the property because it's on a dead-end cul-de-sac, and it's 2 acres. Well, there's an easement that runs through for the city to build a road right through our property, and that road would connect to Main Street.
Uh-huh.
So not even a quarter mile
Wow.
to Main Street.
Nice.
And they're going to do that, I have a feeling. But if you look, there's a trailer park over here, and then you start looking, you're seeing a lot of these old like mill homes that are being remodeled and stuff. Well, we have 2 acres on a cul-de-sac. And I look at it, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I want this. And I have video of this. I'll send it to you once we get everything finished. But it was just a mess. I couldn't believe people were living in it. They had stray animals. It was bad, like worst of the worst. Worst property. It's literally the worst property I've ever seen.
Uh-huh.
So I looked at it, and I'm like, I want this. The vision you're talking about, I'm like, we're going to fix this property up. We're going to do per room rentals. We're going to parcel it off. We're going to build a bunch more properties on this other 2 acres. And then we're going to negotiate with the city about connecting that road into downtown. And I'm going to try to lease them the land instead of sell them the land.
Oh, yeah.
So I see all of this, and it starts going. I go back that day. I look up the value. We had this home value estimator. I look up the value, and they give you a range, and they give you the value in that range with a confidence percentage, and it's pretty accurate. So they put the confidence percentage in there. I called them back, and I said, "We'll give you $40,000 for it." He said 45. I said 42. He said, "Deal." The home value estimator at the time was showing $180,000 was the worth. We paid $40,000 and assumed a $50,000 mortgage,
There you go.
and then gutted the property, which took a while because what he did was truck repair, like big truck repair.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had this property now for almost a year and a half, and we're now just getting to the point where we're rehabilitating it, which is still a great deal. We've held it too long without getting it rented out, but we had to get environmental stuff done on the soil because he had probably 400 gallons of used oil, not in like oil safe containers either.
Really? Wow.
So some of it spilled. So it took us 6 or 8 months to figure out how to get that taken care of because the county comes in and what they do is in the city, they're like, you have to clean this up
Mm-hmm.
and you have to do it in an environmentally safe way. Okay, great. Do you have anybody we can call to do this? Yes, call these numbers. Well, they only go to commercial sites. They don't go to residential. And we're in a residential neighborhood. And so I called probably 200 people to try to do this from here all the way to Virginia, all throughout South Carolina, and this property is in North Carolina. Every place in North Carolina, nobody would come to residential. So I called the city back. I said, they're not going to come to residential. And then they were like, well, you got to call the county. So I called the county, and I had been working with them because they were going to hit us with the same thing, like dilapidated, like start fining us and all this other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I said to him, I said, okay. I said, here's the deal. I've been working with you on this for 4 to 6 months. I'm an investor. I'm not going to live here as a primary resident.
Right.
I'm losing money by the month on this thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm making it was like a $400 or $500 payment on they had 2 liens, the first and the second, and then like a $600. So it's close to $1,000 a month I'm paying. And I said to him, I said, here's what's going to happen. And at this point, I don't care anymore. It's been 6 months. I can't figure out. I said, you guys are either going to step in and force one of these companies to come out here and get this clean, or I'm just going to dump it in the stream behind the house.
You told him that.
Flat out. It's been Donald, it's been
Really?
6 months at this point.
Yeah, no.
I bought this property. I'm trying to get it cleared out, and I'm trying to do the right thing. That what they're calling the right thing, which it is. You don't want oil going into the
No, of course
streams
not.
and so on and so forth. But I was so frustrated at this point. I called him up and I said that, and the guy's name's David, sweetheart of a guy. But at this point, he's like, "This is what's going to happen because I have to get moving on this. I'll take the fine."
Yeah.
Because it's going to cost me more waiting than what the fine's going to cost me.
Mhm.
So A week later, all the oil was gone. They came and picked it up,
Really?
just like that. And here we are.
Awesome. Well, it's sometimes, look, it's hard to be not nice.
Right.
You know? I mean, for me it is.
Right.
But sometimes you just have to be.
Right.
You know, you just got to bear down on people sometimes. And
Yeah. I mean, that's where, especially when you're trying to follow the rules and you've been communicating with them. I remember the first time they reached out to me, I was on a plane last April on the way to Houston for the Final Four. My dad, myself, and my brother went out. And it was a great trip. I had a buddy from high school meet me out there and another buddy from, he grew up the town over from me, and we used to go on family vacation, and there was another family from my town that would go to the same beach as us, and he would go with that family. Well, he ended up meeting us at the championship game because we had an extra ticket. Ends up finds a property in Longview, Texas that we're doing the same thing with. We just furnished it this week, and is a 15% partner. So Ben and I, so funny how it works because you're not looking. This stuff kind of falls into your lap, and it's
but you recognized it.
Right.
You know, that's the thing. It's you have to be able to recognize something.
Mm-hmm.
Just yesterday, I had a friend call me, and he was going to buy this deal for a flip. And, you know, right off the bat, I was like, this doesn't look good.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough room in this. And so I think he's walking away from it today.
Smart.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rehab deal. And it was a nice property, you know, but I think the sale price, the projected sale price is pie in the sky. And I just don't think it's realistic. I think it's a break-even deal.
Right.
Or worse.
Right. So
hopefully he dodged that bullet and
yeah,
go do something else. I told him, I said, look, you're trying too hard. Just slow down.
Right. Yeah.
Let's do something together, but do the right deal. Buying right is half the battle.
Mm-hmm. That's
Or
where
more.
you make your money.
Or more, right.
You make your money on the buy.
Yep.
Because, you know, the property in Kannapolis has sat for a while now, but we bought it at such a low price.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that there was stuff that had to be done that, like, I had no idea how long this environmental stuff, they had to do soil samples and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it could be up to a year, though. So we had to get it at the right price because you're going to be paying that mortgage payment for a year.
There's unknowns in there,
Right.
too.
And there's unknowns. And now we're probably about 3 months away from having it all done, and we're in a good spot.
Good.
And I'm excited about it. And then the property out in Longview, we got that. Ben and I, again, so we get into that deal with my buddy John, and there's some stuff that happened. He's supposed to be managing property, and he's doing a decent job at it, but he's supposed to be managing that property down in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, we'll get it rent ready in a month. Well, something happens. It took a month or two longer. We're like, let's just go ahead, and we got it with $90K in equity. It's 800 miles away. Let's go ahead and sell it. Well, Longview's not having the same economy that we're having here. So it sits on the market for 2 months, and now 20 days later, it's fully furnished, and we're doing room rentals, traveling nurses down there as well, and it's going to crush it. Good. But it's like you run into stuff that is unknown, and if you don't buy right and have that wiggle room, like you said,
right.
If we didn't have as much wiggle room at both of these properties as we do, we're losing money.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, because they're unknowns, and just those costs add up fast.
Oh, yeah. You have to know the numbers too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just what I was telling my friend yesterday, is that, you know, this just doesn't seem good enough.
Right.
It's marginal at best. So just wait for a better deal.
How'd your friend take that? Some people get kind of defensive, right? Not him.
He just wants to do another deal so bad, you know. And I just said, look, just he doesn't know how to use the GIS very well.
Right.
So I'm going to help him with that.
Gotcha.
And so he can do his own shopping. He's been relying on realty agents and stuff, and too often on the buy side, when something hits MLS,
Right.
deals are gone.
Correct.
You know,
100%.
It's over. So I think the best thing to do is find your own deal.
Correct. I agree with
Dig
you.
it
100%.
up. Go dig it up.
I agree. If it's on Zillow, if it's on MLS, if it's on anything, out there, I don't think you're getting a great deal on it. Too many people know about it at that point. And the way I look at it is the most savvy people, they're not shopping off of those websites.
No.
They just don't do it. We have a little bit of a process that we're putting in place to dig it up, and I'll tell you the secret sauce, but I'm not going to give the secret sauce away here.
Okay.
But are you mentoring people?
Oh, anybody that asks, I guess,
Right.
I mean, there are a lot more people that have done better than me, and there's always somebody with more money, right?
Correct.
So, if somebody wants some guidance, and I'll tell them what I know,
Right.
and it's for them to take it or leave it.
Right. Well, and the reason I asked that is because you seemed extremely coachable. And I talked to this about the guys on the floor who are trying to go out and get mortgages, right? Like the top mortgage originators, extremely coachable. You mentioned you had a mentor who said, "Hey, turning wrenches is going to make you the living." Another person who was in real estate that was really good to you, CPA that you've had for 42 years, an attorney for 30 years. It seems like you're really good at taking advice and applying that advice, which is why I was asking if you were mentoring.
Yeah, and initially, I had to shop for an accountant because the first guy I had, I didn't know anything.
Right.
But I knew something was missing.
Right.
There was a level of sophistication there that I knew was missing with that guy. So I went shopping.
Right.
And I found this. My lawyer referred me around to 4 or 5 different firms, and the last guy was on the top floor of this big fancy building, and I bumped into a TV celebrity walking out the door, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm in the right place. But the problem is that he wouldn't take my business. I was too small.
Gotcha.
So I called my lawyer, and I said, that's the guy I want to be with. I really want to be there. And he called him back. He said, he owes me a few favors. Let me call him and see what he can do. So he had hired this new associate, and that's who took my business.
Nice.
Yeah, they got a call out of the blue, on my beeper at the time. No kidding. And called him back, and we've been working together ever since.
Well, that's awesome.
It's just, take advice, but seek advice.
Correct.
And if you don't know something, go find somebody that does.
Yeah, figure it out.
And, it's with legal stuff, it's always better to ask before you do something rather than try to have them get you out of it.
Correct.
Oh, that can be a killer.
Right.
If you've already signed on the dotted line and now you realize that you screwed up.
Right.
Oh, boy.
No bueno.
Yeah.
No bueno. That's where you start seeing the wrong side of the bars.
Yeah. But my lawyer always used to say that every New Year's Eve he raised his glass to all of his clients that would choose to be their lawyer without calling him first. Because he'd make a whole lot more money off of them.
Got a lot to fix.
Oh, man.
So, you listen to a guy like that and you say, okay.
Got a point.
And the same goes with these real estate contracts. Even if you got your own contract, I mean, your real estate brokers or agents aren't lawyers, and most of the time, and so it behooves you to get his or her opinion on your deal.
Right.
And make sure that you're not missing something.
Correct.
And so there again, you have to have someone you trust. It's not free, but if you bring them all your business, then they'll do a lot of little extra things for you that you don't ever get a bill for.
Correct. Right.
And that's where it's at.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Any other advice you'd give to people looking to make wealth through real estate?
Don't get carried away with fancy accounting schemes. I mean, a lot of people do that. They hear all this goofy stuff online, and people say you can do this, you can do that, and swapping around Roth IRAs and all kind of crap.
Crazy.
That's way over my head. I don't know if it's legal or not, but I don't want anything to do with it.
Right.
So I would say just be money's hard enough to make as it is. It's better not to risk it for bad advice.
Right.
So get good advice.
Right.
Just use the KISS method, man.
Yeah, keep it simple, stupid.
That's what I was
right.
thinking. Yeah.
That's it. It's really not complicated.
You said it earlier. Simple math.
It is.
It's simple math, so keep it simple.
Right.
Simple math, and then math. One of my things is assess what type of risk you want to take. I'm with you 100%. You have 100,000, put it on 10 properties, but some people might want to only put it on 5 properties.
Right.
Assess your risk, but you got to be leveraged.
Yeah, I always had in my mind, that property values, the floor was 85, 90% of whatever the value is, because that's where the mortgage was.
Right.
Most people put 10, 15% down max, and then
Right.
the rest is mortgage.
Right.
And not until 2007 and 8 did we see that wasn't the floor. People just mail in the keys, and
Right.
it went down from there. So,
Right.
but that's the only time I've ever seen that.
Yeah.
But just keep it simple.
Right. Well, in 2007, 2008, the other piece was the people who hung on by 2012, the property values then exceeded what they were in 2007, 2008. So they hung on. So that was a lot of bad being done by big companies that then got big old checks.
Yeah.
Right. That was part of it. Watch The Big Short. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie
I read
Big
the book.
Short. Oh, that's it. That's exactly what happened. It's perfect.
They just didn't. Nobody knew what they were investing in.
Right.
They didn't know what they were buying.
They were just buying.
They assumed that they were A properties, but they're really C, D, and E properties. They're way down the list.
Then they were getting packaged and sold in mortgage-backed
That's what I mean.
securities.
Yeah.
And one person went to jail.
Really?
That's it. And it was for like 2 years. How's that happen?
I don't know, man.
I got friends in high places.
And the funny thing is the guys that make the most money ride off into the sunset.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just crazy how that works.
Crazy.
You go rob a 7-Eleven, you're going to do 7 to 10 years. And these guys rob, steal hundreds of millions of dollars and get 3 months in a country club prison. That ain't a bad gig, I don't think.
Like I said, weigh your risk versus reward.
Goes back to that lawyer, too, that you knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lawyers, politicians, friends in high places, right? So,
But to your point, there's blood in the streets, essentially, in the real estate market.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a huge opportunity
oh, yeah.
to buy. And, I know people, in the investment world, they want you to be always invested in the stock market, right? Totally invested, high or low, don't move your money, just stay in there and hold it out. Well, that works over the long term, with a Vanguard fund or something like that. But look at Buffett.
Right.
Right now, $168 billion in cash just sitting. Now, not just sitting, he's got it in some kind of derivatives or something.
He can get it, though.
He can get his hands on it real fast.
Right.
So what's he waiting for?
What do you think he's waiting for?
Blood in the streets.
Blood in the streets. Blood in the streets.
He's waiting for that opportunity, and he's going to swoop in, and he's going to make a freaking fortune again.
Yeah,
Oh,
I say another one.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Another one. When we first started the business, I went down this rabbit hole of I believe in learning from people who've already done things.
Sure.
Getting advice. Part of the reason I like talking to you the first time you walked into our office you wanted to make sure we were real, which I appreciated,
Right.
and shake our hands, look each other in the eye. I like that form of business.
Sure, me too.
So one of the things I believe in is trying to learn from people who've done it before you. So I got down this YouTube black hole of like mortgage loan originators and fell upon Dan Savage's page, which is all the top producers in mortgage and real estate. Like you can look up their statistics, like doing $100 million funded volume a year, right? Some of them are doing 20 to 30 a month, the big ones. So I would watch their stuff, and I forget what the guy's name was, but there was one video. It only had 100 views, and the guy talked about the blood in the streets 07, 08, and he was a brand new mortgage originator, and he was at this big company, and they were starting to shutter, he took it back in the day. They would put, and it's not even that far long ago, but 07, 08, like the technology was non-existent in the mortgage industry. It was still paper files.
Really?
So you would have these manila envelopes, and they would have the file in the manila envelope. Well, everybody who saw what was happening with the market, they left. He took every one of their stack of manila envelopes and went through every single one of them and saw which ones were good deals and found the place for the good deals to go to. Multi-millionaire now, has his own branch, has probably 60, 70 people who work for him. And I just I was watching this, and I'm like, 100%. It's the same thing where in the real estate side, when there's blood in the streets, people like a Buffett would buy. Like, he did the same thing, same concept, except he didn't have to even have the money. He just had the manila envelopes that nobody else wanted.
Right.
It's very interesting.
It's like riding by the property every day that everybody sees it, but you're the one that sees something they don't.
Correct.
And he was willing to take the time to go sift through it and find the jewel.
Right. And he's willing to put the work in, too. A lot of people aren't willing to put the work in.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's think outside the box. It's just so many times that, and another thing is that, small investors, they think, well, I can't compete with the big guys. Well, you can't, but you don't have to. Just put yourself in the path of progress.
mm-hmm.
You could buy the smallest little raggediest whatever you can buy, but if it's in an area that's up and coming, you're in the money already. You just don't know it yet.
Correct. How about this? Like, you have these big multi-billion-dollar mortgage companies, and when you have a tight market in real estate, and when it's a seller's market or instead of a buyer's market, and interest rates are high and you have low inventory, what's going to happen? Well, your production's going to fall, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're a small shop like us, what's going to happen? You can adjust. You can move quicker on your feet, right? So we've adjusted to the point where, okay, we're going to focus on the investor. We're going to focus on this. We're going to focus on getting into commercial. We're going to focus on tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 commercial, where we're making other kinds of deals that fall in that mortgage realm. But some of them are business purpose loans. Sure. Some of them are that. And you can adjust and do even better, quicker. So the small guy, these behemoths of a company, they have a lot of red tape and corporatism in them. So like you said, put yourself in progress. What you see that little dilapidated property that you want to fix up, that's progress, right? But also when things do go haywire, you should be able to adjust a little bit quicker. Now, you don't say you don't have the same cash, but you don't need it.
But you don't have the same risk either.
Correct.
But one of the coolest things I ever saw was a little 1/4-acre lot that was totally landlocked in the middle of this thing off a nice busy street. And somebody beat me to it, but it turned out to be a Walmart.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Super center, with out parcels and all this stuff. And
cool.
Oh yeah. I mean, that somebody made a slam dunk on that. I mean, just this little thing sitting there looked like it was nothing. Can't even drive to it, but it's in the path of progress.
Oh yeah. Well, I saw a story from a real estate investor on X or Twitter or whatever it's called now. And the guy's a real estate investor, and he specialized in finding lots of land that you can't necessarily build on, but they were lots that were parceled off from more acreage behind it in areas that were starting to up and come. Mm-hmm. So you would have to cut a driveway or a road right through his land. Mm-hmm. So he bought this stuff for like between $1,000 and $10,000 per parcel that blocked acreage.
Right.
Sold each one for over $1 million to big time developers who turned them into neighborhoods, made millions of dollars. Now it took 5 to 7 years for it to all go through, but he made millions of dollars in 5 to 7 years just buying up small little parcels of land that blocked like frontage.
Correct. Well, that's a real strategy. It's out there.
Oh yeah, and he wrote a whole thing on it. I read it, and I was like, he's making it seem way too easy. And I'm sure it's not that hard, but he knew what he was doing, and he went after it, and he had a strategy, and he followed it that not a ton of people are doing.
Right.
A little niche that he figured out, and then now I'm sure he's got subscribers, and they're paying for his class because this thing went viral.
Yeah.
When I read it, I was like, wow, that was genius. I've never thought of that.
That's a really good one. I like it.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that I missed 30 years ago was I had a friend when I was in Hawaii that was a real computer geek. And he told me at that time, Windows 95 wasn't even out yet, okay?
Mhm.
But he told me, he said, you need to be buying domain names. I didn't understand it.
Oh.
No. Yeah, so for about 7 years, you know, company had to pay you whatever you wanted. If they wanted their domain, Coca-Cola.com or Exxon or, you know, close.com, whatever,
yeah.
whatever it is. So
Realtor.com.
you could literally name your price,
Right.
and they had to pay you. They couldn't take it away from you. But, you know, after about 7 years, the Congress caught up with the times and
Everybody
said, you
figured
know,
it
if you
out.
have a trademark name, legitimate business, they can't hold you hostage.
Right.
So the party was over. But for 5 or 7 years, man, I left a lot of money on the table. Oh, I kicked myself 100 times for not doing
man.
that. But I just didn't understand it.
Right.
You know, I didn't see where it was going, and maybe nobody did, but he did, and I just kicked myself for not listening, at least doing a little bit of it.
Right. Well, and if you don't completely understand it, it might have been a smart thing not to do it.
I guess. But, you know, you could have bought a domain name for $50.
Right. Right. maybe put a couple $100 into it.
Yeah. And I didn't even do that. I should have.
Right. Right. It's like Bitcoin back in the day.
Oof. Yeah.
So I had 5 Bitcoin.
Really?
I had them, and they were worth 5,000 total for 5 of them. I did the math the other day. I got rid of them when they were at 5,000. I was like
So, yeah,
20,
300 grand, right?
That's about $400 grand now.
Uh.
It's $350,000 that would have been worth today.
Wow.
That was 2017 or 18 maybe. So was that 5 years later? I mean, and I had these things when they were pennies on the dollar.
Wow.
I just didn't know.
Right. There are always things that we wish we had
what
known
ifs.
or done. But, you know, it's just like this domain name thing. I just didn't understand it. But I kicked myself for not doing it.
Right.
Just a little bit of it.
Someone's got NBI, the domain. They're trying to sell it to me for $10,000 right now. Because we're NBI Financial Group,
Right,
but I would like to shorten it to NBI. Like, we're still going to be Financial Group, but have NBI.com and Nick at NBI.com. It's just so much easier. It's shorter. It's 7 characters, right? So instead of NBIFinancialGroup.com. But, yeah, I don't know who it is. I've sent them a message. It's on GoDaddy, and they're like $10,000. And I'm like, and they're not willing to negotiate. And I said, okay.
We'll just continue typing it out. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, with autofill, it's easy. you
Right.
know.
It all boom.
That's you know, it changed everything. You know, remember when companies would shorten their domain names to something really goofy
Right.
just because it was so cumbersome to type
Right.
out the whole thing? No, it's just irrelevant.
Right. It is. And it autofills, and you can save it favorites, and,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, it
It's
is
easy.
It's easy. And I'm like, yeah, I'll just wait.
The other thing about that is that every time that comes up in the dialog box, they see your full company name.
Right.
That's a memory.
Oh, yeah.
NBI, NBI Financial, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's different. So
It is.
I don't know that I'd pay him $10 grand for it.
No, I'm not. I'm not. We're still a new business. We're, you know, going into our 3rd year right now. I'm not paying that. I don't even know if I would pay that if we were a multi-billion-dollar corporation. To me, it's just like, that's not
But
that.
I mean, all your logos, your letterheads, everything, you know, it's
fine.
got NBI Financial. And
Right.
That's
I like
kinda
the
more-
financial group.
Me too.
I like it. I think it sounds better than just NBI. I wouldn't pay him 50
No.
cents for it.
No, I'm not.
I mean, NBI doesn't sound like a big financial group. You know what I
No.
mean? It's like when I think of NBI Financial Group, I think of like one of those big skyscrapers.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Huh.
that's
It
just
sounds
me,
good, looks good.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah, I mean, you know,
I'm
you
not
got it.
paying
You got it rolling already, so it's okay.
I mean, 4 stories is a skyscraper, right?
In Rock Hill.
That's another thing. I wonder why there are no real higher buildings here.
I don't know. Mike and I were talking about that. I said, if we make it real big, we're going to just put a 60-story building in downtown.
Yeah.
We'll be the only one.
See it from Charlotte. They're kind of cool though.
They'll be looking at us, our skyline now.
Yeah, right.
Charlotte will be like, "Oh, what's that one building over there?" It's like that. What's that big tall building in Fort Mill that the old pastor had? That he went to jail.
Oh, you talking about
The apartment complex.
Oh,
talking about
the Bakers.
Yes.
Yeah, Jim Baker. Yeah.
Jim Baker. Yeah, he had. There's that building over there, and someone actually. There's a huge fight. Funny story about that building. There's a huge fight. It was bought by an investment group. That little mall that was over there. It has all like storefronts in it now, like little businesses. And the reason I know this is because this is where we took our kids to see Santa this year. Well, a Christian organization bought it, and they bought that building as well. But there is a politician that's still in office. I don't know his name, but he's still in office, and he's calling in favors so that they're trying to get them to tear that down.
Right.
So I guess that was like on family land or something. And there's like a whole vendetta against the second group after Jim Baker who bought it. They went back and forth with the politicians. A new group has come in, and the building is structurally sound. It's a very sound building. They have to obviously fix up some brickwork and stuff, but they're trying to just kind of remodel it and put it into, I think, apartments or something. And there's like a nasty fight going on in York County over that. And it has nothing to do with whether or not the building's structurally sound. It just so happens that somebody with some old-time connections does not want that building remodeled. They want it torn down.
Really?
And that's it. And that's the story I got. But that's also coming from the organization that owns the building, so who knows? But I was like, man, what a juicy story that is. We should get you on the podcast.
I'm telling you, man. I never forget that whole PTL thing, you know. On the radio. Were you here then?
Yeah, I was in Gaffney at that point in time.
Yeah, so
I knew the Bakers.
Oh yeah.
Well, I knew of the Bakers.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna drag myself down on that rabbit hole.
It was just hilarious. I mean, John Boy and Billy had a really good time with old Jim Baker. I mean, past the Loot Club. I mean, it was the whole bit. And then a couple of days before he was sentenced to prison, you know, he had a nervous breakdown in his lawyer's office, and he's under the couch, crying under the couch.
No.
So
I would be too.
After the news of that got out, John Boy goes down on Trade Street in front of the federal courthouse with a couch. And he's under the couch doing his radio show.
Only John Boy.
It was the funniest thing ever.
You know, he's hilarious.
Oh, the whole show's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They do it. Talk about doing a great job. They actually have their own barbecue sauce now in the stores.
Really?
The John Boy
It's
and
actually
Billy.
pretty good.
John Boy and Billy barbecue sauce, yeah.
Well, you know, that show's syndicated all over the country. You know,
Oh,
they
yeah.
made big bucks doing
Huge.
that. Yeah.
Well, you know, you go back and talk about buildings. You know, when I went to school in Columbus State University in Columbus, Georgia. Well, that was where Aflac was founded.
Aflac.
And the lady down there has Aflac is the tallest building down there, and then they have their own parking garage, just like 5 stories. Well, guess where her house is? It's on top of the parking garage.
All right.
So when you're going downtown, you just see like all these palm trees, and then you see a mansion that is the size of the top of the parking garage. It's insane, and that's where she lives.
Good
I
for her.
don't know if she's still alive, but that's where she was when I was in school.
That's interesting.
It's pretty wild, though.
Yeah.
That is.
I've never been there, but I'd like to see that.
Yeah, check it out.
Well, Donald, I have some meetings coming up. I could talk to you all day, and I'm going to
Yeah,
bring you back on. And, but do you anything else you want to say to the people?
Real estate always goes up.
It always goes up.
It'll
Zoom
go
out.
down for a little bit here and there, but it always goes up.
I always
So,
tell them,
you
zoom
know,
out.
just hang in there and don't listen to the noise.
Right.
Shut it out. Use your good sense and just keep going.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate having you. As always, like I said, it's great talking to you. Mike, thank you for doing what you do over there. And for everybody watching, we really appreciate you. Go ahead and bang that red subscribe button. Turn on the notifications. Follow us on all our social media. We're MBI Financial Group. Not
There you
MBI, MBI Financial Group on all of our social media channels. You can find me at MTG Man Nick on all my social media channels. We appreciate y'all. We're out. Peace.
Well, that was fun. Oh, goodness. What time is it?